Are you frequently in a state of fatigue? It might surprise you to learn that your cellular health begins to decline as early as 25 years of age. As you get older, your cell membranes start to become like Swiss cheese. The cellular damage is the primary cause of biological aging and could be the root of your fatigue. But there's a breakthrough supplement that's scientifically proven to repair and renew your body's cells. NTFactor lipids. NTFactor lipids are identical to the phospholipids found in your cellular membranes. NTFactor is the only solution proven and published in medical journals to repair those dead spots in the membranes. I've been using NTFactor for years. I don't go a day without it. NTFactor lipids comes in an easy-to-use powder in 2 convenient sizes. For more information and to order, just call 800-982-9158, 800-982-9158, or go to NTFactor.com. That's NTFactor.com for NTFactor lipids powder. Welcome to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. It's our weekly opportunity to answer your questions. Questions come to questions@drhoffman.net. And we got some great questions to tackle today. They are grist for the mill for my discussions with Leyla Mutin. That's why we call it our Q&A with Leyla, because Leyla is my interlocutor each week here on Q&A with Leyla. She is a medical nutritionist and is a great complement to my medical background. So together we represent kind of a full perspective on nutritional medicine. So it's great to see you, Leyla. And yeah, I got to say, this is my fun time of the week. You know, I don't consider this work. I consider this really
it's
enjoyable.
Fun. And the time really flies and the questions are interesting. And the viewpoints and everything, it's all good. It's
Trigger great discussions.
Yeah.
So as usual, before we answer your questions, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a newsletter article that I wrote last week, which is on the dietary guidelines. And the dietary guidelines have actually attracted some flack. There's been a lot of criticism of the dietary guidelines.
Yeah.
Criticism comes from the usual sources. The American Heart Association has weighed in on the dietary guidelines.
Yeah.
They don't like the dietary guidelines at all.
No.
And I am going to quote from some of the things that they've said about the dietary guidelines. By the way, it has to do with the previous food pyramid and the subsequent food plate. And so what was happening was that the Dietary Guidelines Committee was kind of locked in discussion, and I call this analysis paralysis. They just could not get around to stating the obvious, which is ultra-processed foods are doing us in America. And some of it has to do with the fact that, they wanted like that really smoking gun evidence that it is ultra-processed foods. And I think there's a lot of evidence that ultra-processed foods are undermining our health. But they, in the guise of objective science, they kind of got mired in the controversy about ultra-processed foods. And they wouldn't weigh in on the fact that ultra-processed foods are frankly bad for us. So finally, RFK Jr. stepped in and he said, look, you're going to come up with like hundreds of pages of analysis, and this is not useful for the American public. We want simple guidelines that tell people what they should be eating. Yeah. And so he promised that. I think part of the pushback against the dietary guidelines is because they flipped the pyramid.
Yes.
And that kind of looks like
I love that.
I know you love that, and I love that too, but it kind of looks like they're trolling, the old line nutritionists, and it feels a little Trumpy,
It feels deserved, if I may say.
No, I think it is well deserved.
I've been suffering from indignation all these years, for decades, with that stupid food guide pyramid. Oh my gosh, I'm glad it got turned on its head.
Right. So So
Yeah.
the previous food pyramid, and I looked it up, it had at its base whole grains,
Yes.
and it urged us to eat
Six to 11 servings a day.
6 to 11 servings a day of bread, rice, pasta, and so-called whole grains. But whole grains, unfortunately, the unscrupulous food manufacturers obligingly exploited the old guidelines by pushing these fat-free cereals, breads, and cookies, even, which are laced with a smattering of whole grains. They have a little bit that health halo that's really a whole grain.
And the language is made with whole
grains. So
what? One kernel?
A smidgen. Yeah. So
it could be any amount.
So that was the con job that they were, the food, they'll oblige us any which way. Now, because of the guidelines, they're going to give us a lot of protein-rich stuff, protein-rich pancakes and protein-rich yogurt and, whatever.
Protein-rich everything.
We can have it, whatever way we want. I looked at this. Oh, by the way, I was going to tell you what the American Heart Association had to say.
Yes.
We are concerned, they sniffed, that recommendations regarding salt, seasoning, and red meat consumption could inadvertently lead consumers to exceed recommended limits for sodium and saturated fats, which are primary drivers of cardiovascular disease. While the guidelines highlight whole-fat dairy, the Heart Association encourages consumption of low-fat and fat-free dairy products, which can be beneficial to heart health. Now, that statement is
incorrect.
Incorrect. It is disingenuous. And the real science suggests that low-fat dairy does not improve cardiovascular outcomes. There's many studies now that vindicate full-fat dairy. And as you may know, there recently was a big study that looked at the relationship between full-fat or low-fat dairy and cognitive function. It was a study out of Sweden. And they found that, in particular, cheese and whole cream conferred protection against cognitive decline. Now, cognitive decline has a lot to do with cerebrovascular disease and, circulatory problems. You have what's called vascular dementia as people get older, just like their hearts get, poor circulation. Their brains get poor circulation because of clogged arteries. And so you would think that full-fat dairy would clog the arteries in your brain. But no, in effect, it actually seems to have a protective effect. So we, have talked about that on this podcast. In addition, when we look at studies on red meat, there are studies that say that red meat is bad, but they're very confounded by the fact that people who eat a ton of red meat probably are kind of indiscriminate about other aspects of their lifestyle.
Exactly.
If you look at the typical kind of obsessive plant-based person, they may be doing yoga. They're probably, more health conscious than the average meat eater. Not like us. We eat meat, but we're also have that whole portfolio of healthy lifestyle habits. And so when you actually adjust for these confounders, like do people smoke? Are they overweight? Are they sedentary?
Exactly.
Then meat is not really that strongly implicated in cardiovascular risk.
Exactly. And all those studies implicating red meat as being unhealthy were all done in the setting of the described high carbohydrate diet.
That's true. Yeah. And look,
all of them. All of them. There was no low carb red meat study that they point to say it's bad for you, even in a low carb. It doesn't exist.
Many of the studies that they consider low carb, they have like 40% carbohydrates, So,
oh my gosh, what low carb? Where?
Yeah.
Show me.
So the other thing about it is, though, I got to say this. If we make a general recommendation to Americans that it's okay to eat lard, it's okay to eat beef tallow, it's okay to eat plenty of steak and bacon and, processed meat, and you add that to an already crappy diet,
right.
That's a calorie source.
A sandwich.
Everything's
a sandwich. Exactly.
That's a calorie. Right.
Exactly.
So,
so many calories. It's hard to overeat lard and meat and even processed meat, unless that processed meat is really laced with a lot of MSG, which can make you hungry. All the glutamate and everything.
How do people eat hamburgers?
Everything's in a sandwich.
It's like they have it with fries. and they have it on a
with
bun,
fries,
and they have it with like
with
very
ketchup,
heavy duty dressing and
ketchup.
ketchup, which is a sugar bomb. You know, it's so
Exactly.
sugary. You know, the times that sometimes I'm out somewhere and I said, well, I'll try some ketchup. Man, it is sugary. It is
It
so
is.
sugary, laden with sugar.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
uh, we cannot really the science on this is controversial. Um, so I break it down into like there are four things that people are pissed off about the dietary
Hmm.
guidelines, which they're pissed off about saturated fat, and indeed, you know, saturated fat actually has been shown to raise LDL, and LDL is
Hmm.
thought to be the end all and be all of cardiovascular risk. And if you there are studies that show that if you sub out saturated fat with vegetable oil, you will lower your
Hmm.
LDL. So they think, okay, this is the way to prevent cardiovascular disease. But there's more to it than LDL. There's so many
That's right.
aspects of this that
Just
are
because you have a
intertwined.
high LDL doesn't mean you have cardiovascular disease.
Exactly. But
Just because you have a high
statistically,
LDL
LDL
doesn't
is
mean you have a
associated
heart
with
problem.
cardiovascular risk, and we
Yeah.
target LDL when we give people statin drugs. I get it, okay?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, as you well know, there are a lot of people who have very high LDL, and often there are studies that kind of push back on this notion that high
Yeah.
LDL is associated
Yeah.
with longevity. Um,
Exactly. And February is Heart Health Awareness Month. And
yeah,
in last week's newsletter or the week before, I wrote about somebody saying, how do I bring my LDL down? But their
hmm
other numbers were good. Their triglycerides were under 100. Their HDL was in the 60s. And my recommendation was get your homocysteine
yeah.
checked, get your lipoprotein little a checked, get your high sensitivity C-react protein checked, and get a VAPS test
Even get
or an NMR
homocysteine
test.
check, get your
Right.
insulin. You know, even
Exactly.
get an
Blood
omega-3
sugar.
ratio. You know,
Yes.
if your
The
doctor
omega-3
is
test is a
attuned
good
to that
idea.
kind of
Hmm.
holistic evaluation. So the
Yeah.
way I look at it is this LDL obsession is a little bit like the drunk who loses his keys and only looks under the street light for his keys. You know, and he can't find his keys
Right.
because they're not
Yes.
under the street light. And
Uh-huh.
so, you know, we have all these other risk factors that we tend to ignore. So, okay, great. You know, you eat a ton of carbohydrates and you
Hmm.
completely eliminate saturated fat and your LDL comes down, but you become obese, you become insulin resistant,
Your
and
triglycerides go through the roof.
triglycerides go through the
You
roof. Your
whatever
HDL goes
whatever
down.
low, yeah, maybe your LDL goes down, but your particle will become atherogenic.
Yeah.
Small pattern B dense atherogenic particles. So the LDL becomes a worse particle. Forget about the number of LDL.
Okay.
It's what type of particle.
So that's
Yeah.
saturated fat. So you kind of blow up the argument around the saturated fat.
Yeah.
And by the way, they the guidelines writers kind of chickened out. They said, you know, it's okay to eat meat, it's okay to eat high fat dairy, but limit your saturated. So they still kind of copped out on that. They still did. They still
Yeah.
said, you know, so it's almost like they were saying it's not so bad, but you got to
Yeah.
limit it. So
Yeah.
so
That's
there's
how it's being interpreted. That's
yeah.
how it's being interpreted.
Yeah. And so, anyway, so there's also concern
Yeah.
about protein, you know, and people still
Mhm.
say that the old recommendation of zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram, there's no
Oh
evidence
my
that more
God. Of
protein is
body
better
weight.
for you.
Yes.
But that is an obsolete recommendation based on what are called
Absolutely.
nitrogen balance studies. And what they did is they took
Nitrogen
subject
balance.
and what
Yes.
they found that in order to maintain adequate nitrogen, nitrogen is essential for protein
Hmm.
synthesis in the body to make organs
Yes.
and to make muscle, that you need a certain amount of protein. So fine, great. So you will not go into a catabolic state where you're digesting away your own protein if
Yeah.
uh, uh, you hit that threshold, according to the studies
Hmm.
that were done like 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But there are now studies that say that a little more protein is
Hmm.
protective. And especially if you're active and you know, like I hit the weight room this morning and I'm hoping that some of the protein that I've taken, you know, will actually go into muscle synthesis to fend off
Hmm.
frailty and sarcopenia because I'm in my 70s.
Hmm.
Older adults need more protein, according to new studies. So they're dead
Yes.
wrong on the protein. Protein is important.
Absolutely. It's essential. And I'm very happy to see in the guidelines that they up that per kilogram,
So
1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. That's the right way to go. Yeah. I'm doing a little jig of joy with with the new guidelines. Besides the inverted pyramid. Yeah.
So number 3 and number 4, we already talked about meat, so that's number 3. Number 4 is complex
Yeah.
carbohydrates. And
Mm.
complex carbohydrates used to be really exalted, as they were the base of the pyramid. They were
Yes.
so important. And I got to say,
For
I don't believe
energy.
that we should not consume complex carbohydrates. But as you
Sure.
know,
Sure.
there are many,
Yeah.
many, many people who are carbohydrate intolerant. And this
True.
notion that we should eat a ton of complex carbohydrates may apply to people who are metabolically fit and very active or younger.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people who are obese and insulin resistant and have high triglycerides and have
Which
fatty
is
liver,
over 60% of the adult
yes.
population. So who are these guidelines for that could tolerate so
Yeah.
many more carbohydrates,
Yeah.
even though
So,
it's inverted and
I
so
mean,
forth?
look, they're good. Carbohydrates can be good for the microbiome. They're also
Sure.
providing us with energy. But guess what?
Right.
We could do fine consuming far less, and they should be
Absolutely.
complex. And I
Yes.
think that unfortunately loses its meaning
Yeah.
when we tell people carbohydrates are fine, like, white rice. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Bread, lots of bread. Mm,
Lots of bread. Yeah. No, no, not unless you want to put some weight on, especially as you get older.
yep.
These are some of the things to avoid. And I think people are still hooked on the idea that glucose is our main source of
Right.
energy.
Right.
It's actually not.
It's like
It's
gas in
fat.
the gas tank. Like how am my car going to
Yes,
run if I don't put
exactly.
gas in the gas tank?
Right, right, right. But it's not the gas. The gas is actually the fat. The carbohydrate might be a little bump up or something, or maybe a little higher octane, although this is not the best analogy. In the presence of carbohydrates, the body will store glycogen. A lot of people don't understand that the storage of glycogen is phase one of fat storage. Fat storage begins to happen after the storage of glycogen. So, for the people going to the gym and after a workout, they're having a banana and a low fat, non fat yogurt. You just metabolically, hormonally put yourself into fat storage mode by having all
Yes.
that sugar
Yep.
in the banana
And
and the
it
fruity
neutralizes
jammy
the
yogurt.
efficacy of your workout, in effect.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It actually dampens the human growth hormone that was stimulated by that wonderful exercise. By eating sugar, you're actually stamping down on human growth hormone. So besides
Wow.
that, and you stimulated insulin, what have you done? You just put yourself in that storage mode
Yeah.
metabolically for the next several hours. Not what you want to do. And that's why you want to work out on an empty stomach if you work out in the morning.
So ultimately, our verdict is
Yeah.
we're actually very encouraged by these dietary guidelines. They don't go quite
Yes.
as far as we
But it's
would like them to
180
go.
degrees
Yeah.
from what it
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
I can't believe that this is happening in my lifetime. I am still pinching myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it is a real ascendant
Right.
moment for we in the nutrition vanguard who've been saying this for
Right.
decades. And finally,
Yeah.
our moment
Yeah.
has arrived. So,
Right.
hooray. Anyway, you can go
Yeah.
back and read the article, and it was in the newsletter. You
Hmm.
wrote an article as well on that subject. So,
Yes.
it's a big, I
Yes.
think, an important subject. All right.
Absolutely.
Our destination for questions at drhoffman.net.
Hmm.
And we're going to tackle some of those questions in just a moment. But before we do that, let's afford one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. So here goes. Listen up.
Now, more than ever, it is important to have a healthy immune system. Many health professionals agree that probiotics are a leading natural therapy for boosting immune health. Why? Because 70% of your body's immune cells reside in the GI tract. By taking a superior probiotic daily, like Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, you can enhance your overall immune system and immune response. The key to Dr. Ohhira's success is the 500 plus postbiotic metabolites that are in each capsule. Postbiotic metabolites are important to the regulation of most systems in our body. For a short-term immune boost, try Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus. Merging nature and science, Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus combines Brazilian green propolis, vitamin E, astaxanthin, and tocotrienols for additional and powerful immune support. Be proactive about your immune health. Ask your retailer today about Dr. Ohhira's probiotics and Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus today. Also available online.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting our sponsors. They're what make intelligent medicine a continuum free resource to you. And they often provide useful adjunctive information to help you select quality products. So, without further ado, let's get into the mailbox. What do we have?
We've got an email from Nancy. Hi, Dr. Hoffman. My husband had blood work done, and his white blood cell count was 3.4. He was wondering how to raise it, the cell count. His cholesterol is 215. Any advice?
Okay. Well, the information that his cholesterol is 215 is about as useful as his color preference. Does he prefer blue or red? I don't think it's really germane to the question of what his white blood cell count is. So let's not discuss his cholesterol. White blood cell count of 3.4 is on the borderline of what's called leukopenia, which is a low white blood cell count. And I got to say, I wish I had a buck. For early in my career, I was very zealous about reading blood tests and then making referrals to specialists. And when I would see somebody with a white blood cell count of 3.4, I was, kind of going by the book, and I would say immediately, oh my goodness, this person needs a hematology consult. And I got to say that each time I would refer a person to the hematologist, they'd go through the time and expense of seeing a specialist. The specialist would write a note back to me saying, this person has what is called benign leukopenia, or in some cases, racial leukopenia, because it's actually known that, they talk about racism in medicine. We should treat people all equally, but actually there are differences in in thresholds for certain things. African Americans have, on average, lower white blood cell counts, and there's what's called racial leukopenia or racial neutropenia, which has to do with the neutrophils, where, you're fine and normal. There should be a different range based on race. So I don't know what the racial background of this person is, but look, 3.4 might be a concern. And what I would do with a person with a 3.4 is I would monitor them. And if it's 3.4 and then it's 3.1 and then it's 2.8, that would be time to refer to a hematologist to see if there is usually this is the result of something called a myelodysplastic syndrome, of which there are many. It's the bone marrow not making enough white and red blood cells. Now, I wish I could tell you that there was a miracle grow for bone marrow to make what are called hematopoietic cells, cells that make blood elements like white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. But I don't think that is the case. I do think that there's a role that general good nutrition could play, and just make sure that I don't think that it would be misplaced for a person like that to come see you and have a complete evaluation of their diet, see if there are any gaps, maybe get some tests to see if they have a low level of certain vitamins, and then, or just to, take adequate supplements. Is there a supplement that's a miracle grow for immunity? I don't know. I'm thinking maybe AHCC is good for supporting immunity, these mushroom type extracts.
EGCG.
EGCG. Here's what I would say too. It's not so much the quantity, it's the quality of your blood cells, of your white blood cells. And so you could have a lower quantity, but an adequately functioning immune system. So I'm not particularly alarmed by this, but I think it's kind of a yellow light, and we've got to kind of monitor the trend. Do you have any suggestions for people because you see a lot of people have borderline or low blood cell counts?
Well, I first want to know what the trend is, and however, Dr. Hoffman, I was going to ask you, if his white blood cell count was to come back up, what do we assume then? That there was some kind of virus? Was it some kind of infection that was kind of wiping him out a little bit, causing?
Well, this is interesting. There's kind of a dual effect of infections. generally, a bacterial infection will cause a rise in your white blood cell count in response to the infection. A viral infection, by contrast, will sometimes deplete your
Uh-huh.
white blood cells.
Okay.
So it's possible that someone like this, in the wake of a virus, perhaps they have a lower count. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Yeah.
That it might return to normal.
Right. I would look for, besides cleaning up the diet, looking for any micronutrient deficiencies. We do need our minerals for a properly functioning
Zinc
immune
is
system.
important, definitely
Zinc is
important.
important. Iron is important. Want to make sure this
Yes,
person isn't low in ferritin, for example.
yes.
Things like that. I would also look for toxic burden because this impacts the bone marrow
Sure,
over
sure.
time, over a lifetime.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're a smoker, you might wind up with leukemia. So that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Or if
There,
you worked in a gas station all your life, you may wind up with leukemia or lower blood counts of,
sure.
yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. You know, like detoxify.
So
That's
I look
important.
for toxic burden, all of that.
Good
All of that
stuff.
I would look at.
All right.
So, Nancy,
Um,
there you go. And don't worry about his cholesterol.
not related. Um, so,
Oh my
yeah, I'm a
God.
little worried about that cholesterol. It's a little too low, you know. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. We've
Uh,
got an email here from Nicholas. Dr. Hoffman, over the last 3 to 4 months, I've been taking NTFactor lipids powder every day. My question is this. The instructions on the container say to take 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is 625 milligrams daily. However, I read through some research and found that in clinical trials, the average dose was 3 to 5 grams
mhm.
per day.
Yeah.
That's 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams per day, 5 to 8 times that small amounts. Anyway, the results were good. So, what does the average person do? How much do I take and for how long?
Okay.
Any problems with toxicity at these amounts?
That's a good question. And so I also take NT-factor lipids powder. I put it in a shake and it blends in nicely in the shake. And it's virtually tasteless. So it doesn't, have a cloying effect on the flavor of the shake. And I take a little more than one. That comes with a little tiny scooper that is like 1/8 of a teaspoon. If you can imagine, that's
Okay.
like very small.
Yeah,
And I put in a couple of those. So that gives me, 1.5 grams approximately.
sure.
And
Not bad.
so in clinical trials, what they look at sometimes is people who have really challenging health problems. They're frail,
Mhm.
or they've had chemotherapy, or in some cases, they've looked at people who have Gulf War syndrome, and they give
Mm.
them, pretty high doses to affect what's called membrane lipid replacement, where they
Yeah.
actually use higher doses to get the lipids into the cell membranes.
Mhm.
And so I think that recommendation is a recommendation for maintenance. And if you have a problem, if you have a fatigue problem, I've used this, higher doses for patients like, 4 scoops a day or 6 scoops a day
Mhm.
to really push that phospholipid into the cell membranes. And so you can use higher
And
doses, and it's absolutely non-toxic. I mean,
yeah,
I think you
Nicholas is a 76-year-old male, by the way.
could
Yeah.
go a little higher. I
Yeah.
think the biggest downside is that you may run through your container more quickly and have to reorder. It
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
that's. I just think it is a good daily supplement, and
Mhm.
I think they're being conservative there. They're just saying, for maintenance, fine. If you're healthy, fine. But I actually
Yeah.
would encourage people with a fatigue problem or with a challenging health, like say you've had chemo or something like that, and you're having
Sure.
chemo fatigue,
Yeah.
then go higher.
Go higher. Right. That could be helpful for that. Yeah. He's also tried MitoPure for 3 to 4 months.
That's the
Uh,
urolithin A thing, and those are
yeah.
complementary, but they work in a different way on the
Yeah.
mitochondria. One
Yeah.
works on lipid replacement, restoring the
Mhm.
membrane integrity of the mitochondria, and the other one works
Mhm.
on mitophagy, which is a cleanup process by which dysfunctional or aged mitochondria are eliminated and don't put
Yeah.
a drag on energetics and cellular function.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in this regard, autophagy is also very important
Mm-hmm.
because that really helps to, I think, and from what I've observed and even in myself, the energy that can be gotten from an extended fast is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And little do people yet know how therapeutic that type of a fast can be, whether
It
it's a
could be a
16,
reboot,
16 hour,
absolute
right,
reboot.
an
Yeah.
8 hour, exactly, that type of a thing.
And I think the
So,
analogy is appropriate because when a computer is running slow, I look at it and I look at all these apps that are open, and things that are
yes,
running in the background. And I say, look, let me just shut it down and we'll start over again.
close it,
And
get rid
this
of
is a
stuff.
little bit what happens to the body is that there's sort of these um, ineffectual processes are going on. And the
Yeah.
autophagy is designed to clean it up and to
Hmm.
get rid of those extraneous things that are burdening the system and slowing it down. And
Yeah.
mitophagy is autophagy specifically for the mitochondria. So
Yes.
we get rid of diseased or
Yes.
dysfunctional mitochondria.
We repair DNA, all of that kind of thing,
Hmm.
but specific to mitochondria. Yeah, it's so important. And one of the best ways to produce more mitochondria, grow your existing mitochondria, is to lower your carbohydrates and get into a fat burning metabolism. That's where the fat is being burned and utilized for energy. Is
Preferentially,
the
yeah.
mitochondria. Is
Yeah.
the mitochondria. That's the place to be.
I mean, look, there's a
So
lot of lifestyle things for mitochondria. I mean, certainly exercise promotes
yes.
mitochondrial function. And
Hmm.
even sunlight promotes mitochondrial
Yes.
function in the skin.
Hmm.
And that's why, I watch a
We
TV
need
and
morning sunlight every morning. We need to get some sun on us.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
these ads on cable TV for these like infrared diode masks that you put on your
Yeah.
face for your facial skin. And it seems like the most wackadoodle thing, but there's
Uh-huh.
something to it because if you put a
Uh-huh.
little bit of infrared, like low frequency red light, almost
Yes.
beyond the visual spectrum, into
Hmm.
your skin cells, it actually helps to activate the mitochondria, and you might get a rejuvenating effect.
There you
Uh,
go.
you know
Yeah.
that, and $600 in the hole, and you might get that.
Oh my gosh. Right. And going out into the sunlight every day, particularly even morning sun, looking in the direction of the sun, it helps the sun's rays help the mitochondria in the retinas.
Hmm.
This is food.
Yeah.
Sunlight is food more than we ever thought.
Yeah, think of
Yeah.
not just mitochondrial supplements, but think of a mitochondrial lifestyle.
Yes.
It's like a life, like, take your mitochondria for a run or take your mitochondria to the gym or,
Right.
take your mitochondria to bed and luxuriate in a, 8 hour sleep.
Eight
You
hours
know,
sleep. Exactly. Exactly.
take your mitochondria to the sauna, take your mitochondria into the
Yes.
cold plunge.
Hmm.
These are some things that stimulate uh,
Hmm.
your cellular energetics. Have a great conversation, over a
Yeah.
great meal.
Hmm.
And, your cellular energetics are going to light up.
Have a belly laugh. Belly laugh. I mean, a good, hearty laugh, not just a giggle. Every day. Every day. That joy that happens. All the good hormones that are secreted. All the good health.
Apropos of
We
which,
need to,
there's
yeah.
actually a wonderful Netflix documentary on Mel Brooks, who
Oh,
has brought us movies like Blazing Saddles and Young
high
Frankenstein,
anxiety.
High
Yeah.
Anxiety, and then as part of that, they reprised Blazing Saddles. And
Oh,
what a great movie. And just a movie that like one of those laugh out loud funny movies
yeah.
that
Yeah.
is a little bit, I don't know if they could make that movie these days because it's, things are so, people are so touchy these days about,
Oh my goodness.
highly charged subjects. But,
Right.
you know, that was part of my mitochondrial restoration program during
There you go.
these cold nights here in New York.
Yeah. We need more of that. Everybody needs more of that every day.
Indeed.
So something to embrace in this new year, I would think. Should
Indeed.
be on the
Indeed.
list.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we got some more great questions. Questions come to
Mhm.
questions@drhoffman.net. And we encourage you to send questions. They don't have to be questions. They could be comments. You could say, I heard you say this, or I heard you say that, and I disagree. Or, you could say, well, this is something that's in the news. What do you think? And, we'll be happy to comment on it.
Discuss.
So,
yeah.
Good stuff. All right.
All right.
We'll be back in just a moment. It's our weekly Q&A with Leyla. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman today with Leyla Mutin, and this is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast.